Hi everyone, I'm Ravi Kapur. Welcome to our coverage of the Democratic National Convention, virtual style of course. We're here with Shekar Narasimhan, who is one of the co-founders of the AAPI Victory Fund. It's been an emerging super PAC in recent years trying to get Asian Americans to vote for Democratic candidates. And of course, we have really the penultimate Asian American candidate in this cycle, Senator Kamala Harris, who has a chance to be the first vice president of the United States that is of Asian American descent and South Asian descent more specifically. And Shekar, it's always great to see you. Tell us about your ground game this year. I know in 2016 we were there firsthand to see all of your events that you did throughout the country, and certainly you had some big ones in Las Vegas, and you have forums everywhere. What is different about 2020 besides the pandemic? I mean, has that just completely shifted your approach to get voters to turn out?
Hi, Ravi. Good to see you and to talk to your viewers. It's an exciting time for us. It's, you know, if you have any political bone in your body, it's an exciting time. If you care about this country, it's an urgent time. There's things we need to do, and we need to do them, and we need to make a lot of things right after November 3rd. So first you have to win an election. So what's different, first of all, from 2016? I think two very critical things. One gets overlooked because of the pandemic. And the most important to me is that in 2016, after November, a whole bunch of people in our community woke up, decided that they wanted to take some civic action. And whether they marched in the Women's March on, the Sunday after the inauguration, whether it was getting involved with the indivisible and groups associated with grassroots organizing, all of a sudden we have seen this proliferation of organizations, women's groups, young people, and frankly, even the uncles and aunties groups that have gotten organized, and we saw evidence of it in 2018. So how do we know it exists and how valuable it is? In 2018, when the Democrats won 40 seats, many of those flips that actually occurred because of Asian American votes. Many of the places where we got close, like in Texas, were because of Asian American votes. So as an example, the Indian American turnout between 2018 and 2014 increased by 20%. So when we start to look at data like that, and we've assembled those groups, we've had conversations, we've talked about how they can work together so that in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Texas, in Ohio, in North Carolina, these groups can be organized, reaching more people because they have more volunteers, more energy, more sophistication than we had 4 years ago. So that's a big difference. And then you add to it the pandemic, which is we are doing everything virtually like this. There are points and times that it is uncomfortable, but most of us not only have learned to deal with it and to be safe doing it, but probably most importantly, we've learned how to find silver linings in the cloud. One of the silver linings is that so many of our community members are sitting at home, they have time. So we're trying to utilize that more efficiently. How do we provide them with a list of phone numbers to call, a list of names, languages that they speak that can be utilized in just connecting with voters? So the answer is we're all digital today. We are much more data-driven even than we were 4 years ago. There are many more people doing this, and it's our job to make it cohesive, organized, and to message this right. Leave no vote behind. Fight for every single vote, every single place, and specifically in the battlegrounds, make sure you're talking to the constituencies in a culturally appropriate manner. That's our plan.
So tell us about what you're planning to do and what you have been doing here in 2020, and how much of your plan was altered by the pandemic.
So main thing is the kickoff for us was in January. We made a decision along with a number of other people on President's Day 2019 that this community and our communities had grown up, that the numbers were significant enough in terms of votes, that we had to take a stand even during the presidential primaries. So we endorsed Joe Biden on January 18th, before the Iowa caucuses, after meeting him and 6 other of the presidential candidates. Our judgment was based on a first-time ever poll that said, if you looked at the Asian American electorate and who they preferred to see as their nominee, their number one choice was Joe Biden. The second thing that guided it was that every scenario we ran, the highest probability of defeating Donald Trump was Joe Biden. And that's why we endorsed him. Now, once you endorse somebody, you're supposed to do something with that. Words are good, but actions speak louder. So we did an event in Las Vegas, which was one of the more pivotal events during the campaign because it was very well attended, plenty of people there, lots of enthusiasm. And the good news was that he then emerged from South Carolina after 5 days as the sort of front runner, if you will. Our goal then became, how do we help organize Michigan when there's a primary? How do we help organize North Carolina, Virginia? Get ready for the general election now. So what is the ground game? The ground game is thousands of people with appropriate information about contact list, persuasion messages, knowing that you can reach people where they are, i.e. telephone. Telephone is working today. It didn't work 4 years ago because everyone was switching to cell phones. You don't pick up your phone. People are picking up their phones. Actually, the first thing you should do always is say, how are you doing? How's your family doing? How's everybody holding up in the midst of this? Because this is unprecedented and it's global. So first, compassion, empathy. Second, in-language skills. If you're talking in Gujarati to a Gujarati person, particularly an older person, makes an impact, makes a difference, says, I knew who you were when I called you, and I can associate with you. Third, the message. The message is that we have a strong ticket that has a plan to rebuild America better, that has a plan to restore dignity and honor and character in the White House, and a plan to ensure that every American is lifted up, including you, including your children, including your family. So before you get to specifics, if you hit those points, you do it on WhatsApp, you do it in any other medium you choose to use, email, just a phone call message, a Zoom call. Do it in small groups. We are encouraging people to do it, and thousands of these efforts are occurring as we speak today because there are thousands of volunteers mobilized, energized, and ready to go to work. So the ground game is as simple as touch as many people as you can. Then make sure, and Ravi, when we started, I said to you, the challenge now is to encourage people to figure out how they're going to vote and make sure their vote is counted. The most important thing in any election is getting people up in the morning on election day, rousting them up, if you will, reminding them, because many people have jobs and lives and children and obligations, and say, today is the day you got to get up and vote. Well, guess what? This election actually starts on September the 14th. People keep saying we got 87 days and they're counting the clock. No, no, no. It actually starts September 14th. First state in the union for early voting is Arizona on September the 14th. And then it will continue. And every day there's a new event in a new state. So what should we do? Show people, how do you get an absentee ballot? 76% of Americans can vote by mail today. Many of them in these states that really matter electorally, where it'll be very close. Michigan, as an example, we lost Michigan last time. Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump by 2 votes per precinct. 2 votes. The Indian American population alone, leave aside the AAPI population generally, if they had just simply come out and turned out at the same level as the general population, it was about 4 votes per precinct. So does your vote make a difference? Yes. Explain these things to people, get to them. And yes, you will hear the noise. You will hear the disinformation. You will hear, but didn't Joe Biden do this? And didn't Kamala Harris say this? And isn't that, be prepared. Engage yourself first. Get yourself up to snuff. Be prepared to also say, we don't agree. That's okay. But still, who is going to be better in this position in the White House on January 21st for you and my family? And if you can persuade them, do so. Start tomorrow. well, join one of these volunteer groups. There are 5 or 6 of them that are really well organized. Get going, make your argument, because if you make your argument to yourself and your family, you can make it to your friend and to this network.
Shekar, I've heard for a number of years now, especially amongst folks like yourself that are trying to get Asian Americans to get out to vote, that Asian Americans are the swing vote. Is that truly the case? And are there verticals within the AAPI community, let's say Indian Americans, Vietnamese Americans, Chinese Americans, are they integral to helping one party or the other capture said community to put them over the hump in November?
We knew in 2016 that Virginia and North Carolina and Nevada, those 2 states, the AAPI vote was the margin of difference between winning or losing. And there isn't a single candidate at the federal level or the state level in the places where there's congregations and communities, AAPI communities, that doesn't know that today. So every candidate running in Nevada in a 5, 7, 10% AAPI district knows you better have an AAPI outreach program. You probably need somebody that looks like your district on your staff, and you better be doing mailings in language. Same's true in Virginia. What's happened this year, the map is different. Not that Virginia is safe, or Nevada is safe, or Colorado is safe, but they are more likely in the Democratic column. But where the map has shifted is we have Florida, we have Texas, we have Georgia, we have North Carolina, southern states where there are significant numbers of AAPIs. Most of them have been non-voters. So the lift that you get, what we try to tell our candidates is, look at the lift. Let me give you an example in the Indian American context. In the Indian American context, and by the way, Pakistani Americans and Bangladeshis are even more unique in the sense they were undervoting. The Indian Americans actually started to vote in 18. The Filipino Americans started to vote, but you have a number of communities that still have to climb up. So if you got 100 votes on the 100 eligible voters on the table, and 70% of them registered to vote, which is, by the way, would be great. 80 would be fantastic, but our community has been 50% in the past, okay? And then of that 70%, only 50% decided to vote. That's 35%, 30 votes, 35 out of 100. So you have to do 2 things. You have to get people to become citizens. Guess what? Asian AAPIs overtook Mexicans in naturalization starting in 2018. We now are becoming citizens. So when people ask me, is the AAPI community, is the Desi community woke to this election? I say, yeah, just by the quantity of emails. And this is even before Kamala Harris got put on the ticket. So is there enthusiasm? Yes. Is there energy and drive and with some real passion behind it? Yes. But it needs to be channeled. You have to not only have people talk about these in cocktail parties, you have to have them do something. The act of getting 5 more people engaged to register and to vote and then vote for your candidate is an act of civic duty. If you believe passionately in the future and your children, that's what you would do. So that's what we tell every single person. And listen, there is the energy. We had, thousands of people at our event on Saturday. On Friday night, there was a Pakistani American. There were 600-700 people and over 1,500 viral already. So when you get communities like the Indian American, the Pakistani American, Vietnamese American, Korean American, Chinese American, Filipino American. Filipino Americans for Biden alone has 1,000 people on a list, and boy, are they chatting with each other every day. But channel this, make it count. Make it count in a sophisticated manner about reaching people and getting them to register, learning the ropes of absentee voting and vote by mail, and make sure their vote is counted.
The selection of Senator Harris as vice president, how integral is that to get Asian Americans to vote for the Democratic ticket? Because as you mentioned, you selected Vice President Biden to endorse many months ago. You did not pick Senator Harris. You did not pick Andrew Yang, another AAPI presidential candidate. So tell me about having Senator Harris on the ticket. Is that a jolt of energy? Is that an absolute path to victory for the Democrats in November? Take us through that and some of the calculations you made when you decided to endorse Vice President Biden.
Sure. And at the point that we endorsed Vice President Biden, Senator Harris had already left the race. Our reaction to her getting on the ticket was first and foremost emotional. You know, I like to use a Hindi saying. You know, I say that anything that you really care about deeply, you will have tan, man, and dhan, which means your heart, your mind, and your wallet. You got to have all three to make something really excited and passionate, you know? So she excited passion. She was, just think about it. Could you have dreamt coming to this country, and I came to this country as an immigrant, that somebody who was the daughter of somebody from India would be, who had been to India, who had heritage in India, would become the nominee as Vice President of the United States? I dreamt about it. We talked about it. We said, boy, wouldn't it be great if? But the fact is, it's real. So the first reaction is a very extraordinary emotional pride and like, oh my God. Now, does that mean people get out and vote again? No, because again, translate these things, channel them. What does she bring to the ticket beyond this emotional reaction that she is a Black woman with an Indian heritage and so on? What she brings to the ticket is she's smarter than heck. She's charismatic and a great speaker. She clearly is not only well-suited, but capable of the job. She can excite donors and fundraising can accelerate. And finally, and most importantly, she'll make a great partner for Joe Biden. They complement each other beautifully. You can see the syncing when they are together at this point. So from every aspect, emotional and otherwise, all I can say is it is absolutely spectacular. So the win for the community is not to get all, you know, like she ate idlis. I mean, I've heard that one. That's great. So Joe Biden likes samosas. Does that mean that we should, you know, no. Think about the importance of this election for you and your children. Think about the ticket that has been assembled and the judgment that was made by the vice president that said, I need this person with me, running with me. And when you look at the judgment he exercised and the person he brought, you say to yourself, I should do every single thing in my power to make sure that these people get elected and govern. Finally, look at the number of people he has around him and the diversity of his campaign, the promises he has made for diversity and the integration and inclusion of all Americans. For a period of time here, honestly, in the last 3 years, there have been times that I felt I was a foreigner in my own country. And I wondered, will my children and my grandchildren have to go through this too? Will they have to feel this way, that we came here, but we don't really belong, no matter that we contribute, we pay taxes, we've achieved? And the answer is no, not with Joe Biden, not with Kamala Harris. Just look at the picture of the two of them. I feel I'm already part of this. It's part of what America is. I want them in front. I want that to become the role models for my grandchildren. And if that occurs, we'll be back to where we were, but there's a lot of work to be done. So please, everybody, don't stop working, even if we win, because there's a lot of work to be done after that to build back this country and build it back much better than it used to be.
Shekar, my last question for you, since we have a lot of folks that are honing in on Senator Harris's South Asian heritage or Indian American identity, tell us what the game plan will be to reach Indian Americans who are skeptical about the Biden-Harris ticket and their outreach to India, especially in light of what's going on. We've had the Kashmir issue flare up in the last year. We've had the border conflict between India and China. We see U.S.-India, I should say U.S.-China relations that have been strained over the last few years. all these dichotomies are taking place. People in the community are talking. And President Trump, as you well know, had a large event last fall in Houston with 50,000 Indian Americans waving him on. We'd never seen anything quite like that. Obviously, there's a huge advantage that Senator Harris is of Indian descent. But that being said, as you said, proof's in the pudding. What kind of actions is the senator going to be doing? What kind of actions will you be doing to talk about these issues? Because there are sensitivities in the community at large who are very concerned about where India will be moving forward if a Biden administration takes place, and the role, if you want to go down the religious track. Certainly, we've seen the Biden campaign have a Muslim American platform. We have not seen anything introduced as of yet for Hindu Americans or Sikh Americans. So can you speak to some of that?
Sure. Number one, that's why we are reaching out. That's why we have told the campaign, you must speak to our community. You must answer questions. You must be out front. I personally don't know how to equate the Muslim American issue with the Indian American issue. Because, I mean, there are also plenty of Indian Americans who are Muslim and are Sikh and are Hindu. Now, obviously, the vast majority of Indian Americans are Hindu, and I get that. But there's a generational issue here. Many of us who came to this country brought with us our natural inclinations to India and our biases, pluses and minuses. It always works that way. Our children and their grandchildren and their children do not have those. The attachments are different. So first of all, I think that let's be very clear. Actions speak louder than words. I've said that before. Donald Trump went on the stage because Modi was there. Modi got the 50,000 people. Trump joined the party, if you want to call it that. He had a great trip to India. Every president, Republican and Democrat, has been to India at least once, if not twice, during their term. Why? Why is this a bipartisan relationship? Who helped pull the Indo-US nuclear treaty over the line in the US Senate? It was Joe Biden. Who was the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee at the point that they started to talk about the strategic value and importance of the relationship? Joe Biden. So you can go back 25 years and look at that history. So on Saturday, we put out a fact sheet, the campaign did, which said, what does India-US relations look like? How do Indian Americans fare in a Joe Biden administration? And it is pages long, and it covers every subject. Does it say, by the way, that we have all agreements and no disagreements? Of course not. What it says, actually, when you touch upon issues that seem sensitive, it's not saying we disagree or we fundamentally are opposed. We have this big, large relationship. It's strategic, it's human, it's defense. It's got to work in all aspects across any presidency or Secretary of State. What that also means is that you often within family and within friendship are going to have tough conversations about issues where you don't agree. India's not going to agree with the US all the time, and the US not, but you do it quietly. You have conversation, you say, and sometimes it comes from misunderstanding. So what can we do to address this in the campaign? Factually state what our position is, which we have done. Put the top people on the stage and say, answer these questions, which Tony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, Seema Sadanandan did. Finally, most importantly, our job is make it relevant to what's going on domestically. You have a president right now, Trump, who has cut off H-1Bs, has eliminated the H-4 work visa, has put trade tariffs on India. You want that to be your president, the guy who's closing the door and shutting the borders? Or do you want a president who's inclusive, wants the economy to grow for everyone, cares about justice and social justice? You have a choice to make here. Don't become a one-issue voter. This is not about A issue or B. This is about your children and your grandchildren. That's why I'm voting for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And I think Kamala's pick takes it over the top for me. It was the icing and the cherry on the cake. To my mind, we've already made the halwa. We just need to taste it on November 3rd as a community together.
Shekar, I always appreciate your insight, and the ground game will be very different in 2020, and I look forward to seeing what you all accomplish. Always appreciate your time. Shekar Narasimhan, one of the co-founders of the AAPI Victory Fund. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ravi. Appreciate it.